Welcome back to the Makers of MidCity podcast. Today I have the opportunity to sit down with Brian Manley, graphic designer and creative director of MidCity District and The Camp. I have sitting with me as co-host Lindsay, executive director of MidCity District. Thank you so much for being here, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. So before we start diving into the creative process that you've put in place here for MidCity, talk a little bit about your background and kind of what got you into all this.
Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer by trade. That's what I do. I run my business called Fun with Robots. At least that's what the government calls it. And I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I have a wife, a daughter, and 2 crazy dogs. And I just wake up in the morning, walk to my office, design stuff. And I just like being creative. A lot of it is birthed out of my love of music. I used to think that the only people that are good at graphic arts found their love of design through music, but turns out it's not really true. But as for me, that's my passion. So I love working with music-related stuff, and then subsequently fell into food-related design and just any kind of design stuff I like to do. And then, by the grace of God, I got connected to the camp and RCP in MidCity.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how that all came about, how the initial, it's like you've been on board here working with the MidCity and working with the camp since the beginning, really.
Yeah, just about.
Talk a little bit about how that initial inception kind of happened and kind of what that journey's looked like.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So there's a point a few years ago that I started working with lots of restaurants in Atlanta, and it started going around. I really enjoyed that process of helping them build restaurants, brand, and create the vibe and make it cool and hip. And one of the restaurateurs in Atlanta was like, "Hey, I'm working with these people in Huntsville. They're trying to build out this thing. It should be pretty cool. You should come check it out." Next thing you know, connected with everyone here, and they're like, "We need design help." So I'm like, "I'm down." I'm like, "Is it cool that I'm doing it from Atlanta a few hours away?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's no big deal. We have things called computers. We can video chat." This is before Zoom and all that. We don't Zoom that much, but like we would just chat and like connect online and work through stuff. But that dude fell away and went away, but I got to stick around by the grace of God again. Thankfully, they liked my work, but just getting to brand the whole space and just give it a visual aesthetic. Because when I came on board, they had a logo that was and they had I just do flags everywhere, and it was a cool space and a cool idea. And I connected to it because I could tell the heart of it was to just bring people together under the banner of music and hammering some beers and just having a good time. And that's what it seemed to become, and that's what it still is. So, yeah.
So, Lindsay, I think it's important to talk a little bit about, the connection with the camp to MidCity, because I think MidCity owns the camp, but I think to kind of the disconnect and kind of how the camp was sort of the initial footprint into what MidCity District is today.
Yeah. So MidCity District is a 140-acre district. It's a beast. It's a village. It's a mini city, and we've finished about a third of what we have to build out at MidCity. So in order for us to tell a story from day one, we wanted to have a place, a physical space for people to gather, for MidCity to tell the story about who we are, what our intentions are, what the vibe is that we're going for. Welcoming place, music centered, great food, good drinks, good coffee. It's just a place to kind of, the third space, is made a comeback where you can bring your dog and chill and drink coffee and just kind of stay for an entire afternoon. So MidCity founded the camp. And that for the past 7 years, that's when I moved back home to be a part of this project, is to get the camp off the ground. Because we needed it to be a place, a space, a place for people to, like I said, just chill and enjoy and kind of reacquaint themselves with this area after the mall went down. And after that, the more and more we realized that we needed a huge and awesome team to help build it creatively, to help build the interiors, to help create this energy that told the story of MidCity in a nice and approachable way. So here comes Brian. Here comes these musicians. Here comes our farmers market. Here comes restaurateurs and entrepreneurs out of New Orleans with our Octo Hospitality team. It just kind of unleashed a whole new life into MidCity and what this district, formerly Madison Square Mall, is now becoming. And so 7 years later, here we are working with Brian and musicians and our farmers market vendors to create this space that has really done a great job of telling the story of MidCity.
Yeah.
And Brian has been an integral part of sharing the ideas that we have and getting people to buy into the cool ideas, the drunk history and the farmer's market and the wacky, what do we have coming up? A hoedown coming up.
Hoedown.
And then we have trivia nights. It's the graphics that Brian creates helps people convince themselves to come out or not.
Yeah.
And so Brian has been just such an integral part of that creative layer that makes the camp so special and what draws people out to MidCity and discover MidCity even when it's at this state that it's in.
And I think what I would love to get from your perspective, Brian, is, not living in Huntsville, not being from Huntsville, being in Atlanta, but being able to create and kind of see the vision of what the Huntsville community wants, but also what RCP is looking for and MidCity's looking for and what the camp's looking for. How do you go about that creative process to say, hey, here's this vision that I've seen or heard from them, and then how do I dictate that into an image, into a poster, into a logo, into a you name it.
Yeah, that's great. I think being here in Huntsville, like when I first started working, I was coming here every few months just because I trying to get a vibe for the place, like see what's going on, see what the differences are. And sometimes I'll put my Huntsville hat on and go. I'll try to, like, when I design or think about things, what are they looking for? So one thing I didn't realize when I started coming to Huntsville is, like, you guys love New Orleans related and gumbo and all that stuff. I'm like, there's not an ocean or anything nearby yet. You guys love it. I'm like, that's fascinating to me. So I have to now think through that lens. It's different because in Atlanta, it's like we don't have that. We have like the meat and three kind of food thing. That's all what we have going on. So I have to put my little hat on, but then also they're giving me great direction for ideas. If you're calling a thing a hoedown, like, boom, you know what that's we're doing a hoedown at the camp. Let's make that fun. But then we talked about it yesterday. Like, how do we make it so it's fun but not offensive to people who really love country music? I couldn't line dance to save my life, but I respect it. I think Garth Brooks is the greatest country musician of all time. And that's all I really wanted to say. But
we're done here.
Well, yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting. So these things are exciting, and all the things are fun. Like, if I was designing for, I don't know, something extremely boring, it would just be like, okay, I'll do it. But everything there is super fun. They had a band from the UK the other night, and they sent us a poster like, hey, we're touring the US. So I took their art and I did some things to it. And it's exciting. It's fun. It's fresh. I like helping out young bands that maybe have never been on a poster. Because that's one thing there's a huge music scene in Atlanta that I'm really deeply connected to, and it's great. But it's Atlanta. It's a big city. It makes sense. There should be a music scene. And when I got to Huntsville, I just kept searching for the scene. And then I started seeing where it was and what the vibe was. Again, way different than Atlanta. Like, I come from the punk rock background, so I'm going to clubs and gritty stuff late at night. There is that here, but it's more like in different vibes. There's a good hip hop soul thing happening here that I can't figure out. Like Lamont Landers, I don't know if he should be famous around here. Like, he blows my mind. And so when I think of Huntsville music, you got, was it not Stax? You got what's that
Fame.
studio? You got Fame and all that stuff around here. So that influences it. So that helps influence my design, which I love because everything's just fun. So back to the giving bands a poster. That was like one of my first goals. Now we're doing so many shows and things. It's hard for me to design 85 posters a month because they're doing like 6-7 things a week at the camp. And so sometimes it's like drinking from a fire hose where you're trying to like, how can I design this super quick?
Yeah. And I think, you've kind of made the branding of what MidCity and the camp is over the years. Like, you've kind of designed the sort of the template, and then being able to then incorporate new events. And there's always new things that the camp's trying to do to just activate the district.
Yeah.
Lindsay, talk a little bit about kind of how on y'all's end, when y'all are looking at doing a new event for the camp or doing a new event at MidCity, that then you kind of tag team and work with Brian at the same time to kind of say, hey, here's this idea for this new event or this new thing we want to bring to the community. And then, Brian, how do you kind of work in tandem with them to kind of say, hey, here's how kind of a rough sketch?
We've got a pretty robust and creative team at the camp that we all have our wacky ideas, and I've got a huge spreadsheet of crazy things that I still want to happen at the camp. I wonder if I should tease one now, but I'm still trying to find the animals that are involved in this idea, which would be turtles. So
okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'll tease you with that.
All right.
But so no turtles will be harmed, by the way. But yeah, we all kind of throw in our ideas when we're meeting weekly for the camp, and then we figure out which ones need to stick and which ones would resonate. we try not to look at local events. We try to look at events that are happening overseas or in LA or in New York, and maybe be inspired by that and see what fun ways we can activate the camp. And then, like Brian said, it's a fun atmosphere with a fun perspective. And his personality and his style nails it on the money, because the camp is not a serious voice. It's not supposed to be a serious place. It's supposed to be a chill place where you can kind of come as you are, stay as long as you like, bring the dog, bring the kids, bring the grandparents, whatever, and just chill for an afternoon.
Yeah.
So we come up with as many ideas as we possibly can. One of my favorite ones has been bilingual story hour, and hopefully we'll pick that one up soon. But, kids coming and hearing a book read in Farsi and in English, and just kind of getting exposed to new and different things. And those are the types of things that make Huntsville even better than it already is, and make MidCity and the camp even better than it already is. And then we interface with Brian as soon as that event is solidified, and he kind of runs with it. We'll say we want to throw a cowboy hat in there, and he comes up with something amazing and creative.
And they don't push back very often, which is nice.
Oh, wow.
Only a couple times they've ever said, not really the thing we're going for. I'm like, fair enough. I got weird today. Sorry.
Yeah. Which we love it. It nails it on the head. We want everyone to have creative license. We want the musicians on the stage to have creative license, the farmers market vendors, the staff, our vendors and our teammates. It's not supposed to be a serious follow the rules, give me exactly what I want and the way I'm thinking. There's a layer in there that allows for a lot of creative freedom, and we feel that way with the patrons too. They can kind of make it their own when they come out.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you mentioned it off air, Brian, earlier, but this is the first time you've been to the MidCity District in a few years.
Yeah.
Talk about how, I think Lindsay took you on a tour around MidCity, and you got to see kind of the new developments. A lot's looked different than what it was, I think, right before COVID when you came out here. Talk about how that tour and that experience, getting to see the district, see the camp again, is going to maybe influence future designs and future creativity on future projects for this area. Yeah,
it's definitely weird because 7 years ago, I would just see all these artist renderings from architects and things like that, and I thought, okay, this place will be cool. Like, good luck, have fun. And 7 years later, it's starting to come around. These signs that were once just digital mock-ups are now real. Like seeing neon that says MidCity over there, and it blows my mind. And it makes me it helped me solidify, this vision, I now get it even more. And they're just getting started. Then now the community just needs to get super duper hip to it before it gets impossible to get in here or something. Because I was just saying earlier, like, you could come to MidCity once this place is fully blown out and just never leave the house, or never need a car, really.
No, you just walk everywhere.
That sounds fascinating to me. Like, the least I can drive or get out of my house, the better. And so,
keep the car parked.
Exactly, keep it parked and just keep it charged or whatever it is. But I just, I'm shocked how it's happened. But I also know it takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so, it's been a nice slow process. I know the pandemic slowed things down. The bummer was, I think the last time I was here with my family was Mardi Gras, the very first Mardi Gras fest we did here at the camp. And within 3 weeks, the whole world was shut down. I think is how it worked out. And circumstances never really came back, but because I can Zoom and connect online, we did. But it's really established, makes it more sense now coming here. Also, on the design side, the more that goes up, I think it will elevate the design, and it makes it harder for me. You've got the Orion doing great graphic design for what they're doing over there, and I'm like, okay, now I got to keep up with what they're doing. I got to make them work harder too, right? And because we're just trying to capture eyeballs. There's so much. I'm obsessed with this idea lately that we're in this attention economy now. Like, everything is just trying to fight for your attention. When you grab your phone, it's ads on everything. It's attention. And part of what I do, I contribute to that attention economy. And so, how do we grab people who are maybe not that busy on a Tuesday night, but it's also like, do I really want to go out? Like, maybe part of my design can help get them off the couch and come out and see a band. Or, I do like Taylor Swift. I'll do some trivia tonight. And that's the kind of stuff I want to make sure that we keep doing and doing well, because the other part too, almost half the events at the camp, if not all the events at the camp, are free. Like, that is the thing that's almost lost on me every time. So I'm like, okay, we're doing this for free and we're trying to make this thing look great. Like, there's no reason not to come out.
Yeah, and I would assume over the years of even creating stuff for the camp and stuff for MidCity and the other work you get to do with bands and festivals and stuff like that, there's probably been examples of graphic designers that you kind of lean on as like inspiration, or as a consumer yourself of that the constant the constant with all the content that's coming our way, it's you're constantly bombarded with everything. I mean, it's hard to kind of, hey, what's going on where, what's happening when, how do you kind of look at other people's graphic design work and have how that can dictate the work that you do and maybe even things that they do that you're like, I never thought about doing it that way.
Oh yeah. It's easy to get stuck in a rut. Like I've been doing this a while, and I kind of like have my methods of how I think, and I have my methods of how I think and design, but every now and again, you'll realize the well is a little dry and you're like kind of, nothing's coming out. So thank God for Pinterest and all these other apps. So you can just start looking for stuff and go, oh my gosh, that's a great perspective, great point of view. Let me bring that in. Like everyone has a pin board or a mood board of things they like. And I'll do that a lot. That's a good idea. Maybe one day we'll do that for 4th of July at the camp or things like that, where I get inspiration from all of it. But sometimes you got to suss out the future bad design or the stuff that's blown out. Like one thing I don't think, like designs can get stale and can get like overworked pretty quickly. And so one thing I want to make sure we do with the camp is like stay ahead on top of design. Like we've been trying to get dope merch going for a while. We've got a few merch pieces that are super fun, and hopefully whether you like the camp or not, maybe just want to buy the hat because it's fun. That's what I want to do. I want to kind of make sure we're pushing it. Just trying to be more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Maybe intentional or
more intentional, and also like just trying to keep a step ahead of everything. Because I don't want everything to feel like it looks like a furniture commercial where it's just like.
And I think sometimes too, it's you have to have sometimes bad designs, or you have to almost try things that are outside of the norm or the box that you've created, just because you don't know what might work now that didn't work then.
Yeah.
And I think you can easily get into this rut where, you get into this systematic approach where it's like, this has worked. People are enjoying it. You get the feedback from Lindsay and the team at the camp, like, oh, the events have been booked. You're doing a great job. And you kind of get into this rut that's like, I can just do this quick. Yeah. And then you're like, wait a second, I know this one festival, the Wiffle Ball Classic, I want to make this graphic look a little different.
Yeah.
And I want to do this little twist on it because I think this might introduce an audience that we haven't had before.
Yeah.
And so like you often kind of just have to throw that out there and kind of get a no sometimes and say, hey, like, I tried. Like, I pulled on those creative strings a little bit more than I typically would have, but at least we know that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. It's funny you mentioned Wiffle Ball Classic because did you play in that?
I did not.
Oh, man, that'd be fun. Well, I remember the first time Cody brought it to us, she was like, I just want this baseball mascot. So I drew one. She didn't like it. I thought of some other things we could do. Wasn't great. And I looked at what she sent me. I'm like, who owns this? Like, do we have access to this? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, let me redraw this. And all of a sudden I brought some elements together and it came together, but it got a couple no's at first. Unusual no's. Usually Cody's the no person. We should talk to her about that.
We'll talk to her.
But yeah, then it came together. It was great. And again, sports, like there's not a lot of sporting things happening at the camp. So when we do that kind of stuff, let's get weird and super sporty. Let's make it look like a Super Bowl, like big epic sport graphic design. So I have to put that hat on just to draw people out.
Yeah. And so, it's incredible just to see how you've been able to, over the years, continue to grow the camp's branding and continue to kind of reiterate on new things. Is there one sort of graphic experience or one project that you've worked on over the years that kind of stands out as a unique experience for you on your end of something that you never thought you'd ever be designing, or something that maybe is kind of tested the waters or tested your ability as a graphic designer a little bit more than other projects have?
Yeah, the Camp to Amp design, when Lindsay came to me a couple of years ago about that, I knew it was an epic thing. I saw what Orion was doing, and I wanted to give it some epicness, but I didn't know how because there was we had to have 1 million words, 1 million sponsors, 1 million bands, 1 million. And so like, you can't do all that. So how do we make this thing lean and mean? And I just had this inspiration of color moving around. And it's not super colorful, but it pops and it's got bold type. And somehow for me, you have those aha moments where the light bulb goes off and you create it and you're like,
that's it.
And luckily I submitted it and she's like, rules, let's go. And so that's kind of been our launch for the last 3 years now, or this will be the third year coming up.
Yep.
So it's that event really like I'm super stoked on. And every year I still think trying to find new ways to develop it, but I also don't want to ruin it because it kind of has a vibe. So
Brian is really good about when we have consecutive events too. It looks the same as year one, but elevated. It's almost like the big sister, the big brother of last year. And so it evolves so you can create more interesting and unique and cool merch. So, because you want to have it kind of specific to each year. But he's good about chaining them together. So it's nice. It looks cohesive, but it also looks elevated each year. So that's something that's been cool because we do have a lot of consecutive events at MidCity and at the camp that we want to have a little bit, take a 2.0 version and then the 3.0 version.
Yeah.
And we love and are honored when people are sporting Brian's merch all throughout town. I'll be, at the coffee shop or somewhere downtown or, at an event or a concert or something like that. And people are wearing the Camp to Amp merch.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Because you go to venues and bars or restaurants and you see their merch and you're like, it's just your logo or whatever. And I do a lot of merch for bands and festivals. And I know that there has to be like a you have 5 seconds to look at that thing and go, yes, I want it. And if you capture them in that little moment, like they'll think about it and they'll go, yeah, I want that shirt. Because how many shirts do you get for free for like you run a marathon or you get a corporate shirt, whatever? Those just end up in like the dish rag pile.
Yes.
Or the shirt you wear when you're mowing the lawn or painting your living room.
Yep.
I always want to make sure those shirts aren't the paint my living room shirts and something like people could wear. And one day will hopefully be vintage memorabilia around Huntsville, right?
Yeah.
Well, something neat too, just to touch on one of Brian's posters, Joanna White and Jeff White had their home on the home tour. And one of Brian's posters is showcased on a wall in their home during the Arts Home Tour. And I sent Brian a picture of it showing how his concerts aren't just a memory, they're art on people's walls. And that is just the coolest thing ever. And we love just handing him the keys because he's got the intention, he's got the vibe, he's got the mind for it. And nothing brings us at MidCity more joy than to enable creatives rather than hiring a creative to do what we want. We want to hire a creative to do what they want and they can do. Like we're not trying to fit them into our box. We're hiring them to showcase their work.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament that like you can see too over the years of you being a part of this. Like you're able to kind of grow into like the confidence that you can be the creative that you want to be, knowing that though you might get pushback here and there, like it's not because it's like we think you were a terrible graphic designer. It's that like, hey, like that's not exactly what we're feeling at the moment because of what the Huntsville community is looking for. But I think it's cool now that you've been back here after so long not seeing the district, now being able to see it engaged and activated. I hope you'll be back sooner than 7 years or whatever it was, and actually be able to continue to see your stuff. And I mean, being able to be in the Huntsville community and being able to be here this week that you've been here and seeing your designs, like what's that feeling of seeing either a poster that you've seen at a coffee shop for an event or seeing someone wear your merch or even if it's not even MidCity specific, just in general, the work you do, like, is that like the ultimate test of like gratitude of being a graphic designer?
I think so. I think the older I get, the more those things are important and mean a lot to me because it's like validation of like, all right, we did something right. I work with, been working with for the last 11 years, Shaky Knees Music Festival in Atlanta since the jump. And when I go to the festival every year, people are wearing the merch from the previous years, which is a trip. So I'm walking around the festival and it's just all my work. And my wife is like, isn't that so cool? I'm like, I'm a little overwhelmed right now, to be honest with you. It's like, I wish I got $1 for every shirt they sold, but it's definitely rewarding. And I'll never forget about 4 years ago, or I think it was, I was at the AC Hotel checking in and hitting the elevator. And right on the elevator, right by the elevator buttons and all that, there was a poster for MidCity. I'm sorry, not for MidCity, for the Mardi Gras event. and it looks so great. And my first response was, that looks awesome. Like, wait, I did that. Like, that was the sort of response. And because on a computer screen, it has so much like energy and life, and but when you print it and see it like mounted inside this dope hotel with chrome elevators and all this stuff, and it's right between there, like, man, how would you not want to come out to that thing?
That's right.
So,
and I think that placement too of events and advertising and design, the placement is a huge part of successful design. It's no matter how good the design is, if it's not placed in the proper spot, no one's going to know about that event. And I think that's a testament too with your creativity and being able to create this amazing design, and Lindsay and their team to be able to then say, where does this design need to be placed within MidCity, within Huntsville, online to best attract and get the most out of that design that you've been able to create. So I mean, it's been incredible to see. I thank you for taking the last little bit talking about kind of the creative process for MidCity and the camp. I'm excited to kind of continue to see all the fun projects you're going to continue to work on. Yeah. And we'll have any information about Brian and the work he does and about MidCity and the camp, we'll have links in the episode notes. But I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Man.
Thanks.
Thank you. See you guys.